I think most people felt on Saturday that result was significant. Whether you want to call Vanderbilt a playoff contender, you want to call them a really good football team, you want to call Clark Lee one of the up-and-coming coaches in college football, like all that may be true. But for LSU, with this team, this roster, this investment, this coach, this staff, to go lose to Vanderbilt is still loud. It's a loud, loud result. Because to everyone that would listen, everyone in Baton Rouge at LSU was talking about championships. Brian Kelly mentioned at SEC Media Days in Atlanta, we weren't playing championship-level defense. So he felt that they were addressing that with the players and the coaches they brought in. And if, like I asked Josh Thompson why he came to LSU a couple of weeks into the season, and he said to win a national championship. Garrett Nussmeier mentioned that in his I'm Coming Back video last December. And so the goals were stated. And when you lose to Vanderbilt with those stated goals, like it is a jarring result. And that leads a lot of people to say a lot of things. And I'm certainly in no position to tell you how to feel. Most people I talk to, friends, family members, just people in my inner circle, people sending, I sent a couple of tweets out on Saturday that got a lot of impressions. The one about the fit in Baton Rouge and the one about LSU's pass blocking grades on PFF. They both got like over 200,000 impressions on Twitter. And so that generates a lot of response toward me. A lot of people tweeting at me. And so I'm getting that feedback and text messages and phone calls, and I'm in the LSU ecosystem. And the resounding theme in the LSU ecosystem is this staff is a failure, this roster is a failure, and there have to be massive changes. That's the way fans feel. And it's reasonable because you haven't gotten to Halloween yet and your season is on the brink. And that's the nature of college football. It is like this more so than any other sport that I personally follow. College basketball, you play bad for 3 weeks, you can figure it out. College baseball, you play bad for 3 weeks, you can figure it out. The NFL, you play bad for 3 weeks, you can figure it out. NBA, play bad for 3 weeks, you can figure it out. In college football, you play bad for 3 weeks, you can have your goals wiped off the table. That's this sport. And so there's not a lot of time for LSU to get any better. You can't lose again. That seems very unlikely. And that's what leads people to the belief that this is ultimately going to be a failed team. And I'm not calling the players themselves failures. I'm not calling the coaches themselves failures. But when you have a stated goal and that goal is not reached, I don't know what else to call that. That would be a failure. So it comes to big picture with the program. And there are variables there that I cannot speak to directly. And I'm confident that most LSU fans can't speak to them directly, but they're going to do it anyway. And that's fine. One of the things we like to do in our culture is talk about our teams. And we're going to have opinions, and we're going to feel certain types of ways. But my contention, the way I like to address that, is I like to speak to the things that I know about. I don't know how much money LSU is going to need in name, image, and likeness for next year's roster. I don't. And I don't know how willing the big money boosters are going to be to cut those checks again for this staff. I don't know. That's not to suggest they certainly will not, and it does not suggest they certainly will. I don't know. Right now, if Lane Kiffin holds his hand out to the Ole Miss boosters, they'll write the check. Right now, if Mike Elko holds his pen out and says, I need the boosters, they're going to write the check. Right now, Ryan Day in Columbus, they'll write the check. When things are going really good, I can tell you that people will be receptive to it. When they're not, that is a case-by-case basis. And I don't know what LSU's big money boosters feel. And by the same token, I don't know how they feel about buying out a coaching staff and hiring a new one. I'm not telling you whether they should or shouldn't. I'm telling you I have no idea what people feel about a $60 million buyout right now and then going to pay 80 more for a new coaching staff. You're talking about a decision that is made based on $150 million. I don't know how the people whose names I do not know feel about cutting those checks. So for me to sit here and suggest that this has to be done or that has to be done or this can't be done or this is like, how would I truthfully have that conversation with you when I don't know how people feel about spending money? Because here's what I think. You can call me crazy. You can say that's reasonable. This is what I think. I think if Brian Kelly gets 5 more years as the head coach at LSU and he gets massive amounts of resources from the powers that be, he'll win a lot of games. I believe that. He's hired good coaches his whole career. He's won a lot of games his whole career. LSU is a place where you're capable of hiring good coaches and winning a lot of games. And I think if Brian Kelly coached out his contract, he'd win a lot of games. I think he'd make the playoff a time or two, and I think he'd have some good teams. I think that. But I think there are a lot of coaches that can win at LSU. I think that proof is in the pudding. Nick Saban won at LSU. Les Miles won at LSU. Ed Ogeron won at LSU. A lot of coaches can do it. So when I get asked, and I get this all the time, are they going to buy Kelly out? How would I know that? I can point to the Saints salary cap and tell you what I think a good investment is and what I think a bad investment is. But we have that data. We know how much they can spend and how much they've spent on everybody. I don't have the data to suggest how receptive any of the people who are cutting these checks are to writing out Brian Kelly and spending more money for players, because you're going to have to do that with next year's roster no matter what if you want to win. If Brian Kelly's the coach or he's not, somebody's got to spend money on players. And I don't know how receptive they are to a huge buyout that Penn State just paid, that Florida just paid, that A&M did in their day, and then go in to hire a new coach. Like, I have no idea. And my genuine thought is that you probably don't either as an LSU fan. You're just really ticked off that you couldn't stop Vanderbilt, and you go, blow this up and get me a new coach. And you're within your right to say that. I'm just kind of pointing out how I generally approach it. So if you ask me, well, is this Kelly's last year if they lose 2 more games? If we want to play hypotheticals, I have no idea. I have a thought. My thought is that LSU's booster base is probably not going to be super ambitious to spend a huge money on a coaching buyout. That's my thought, but I don't know. It might take 2 uber rich guys who say, that's not that much money to me. I'm sick of this. Boom. It might be those same 2 uber rich guys that go, okay, this didn't work. We need to make some adjustments. Kelly's a proven winner, and I think they've done a good job with the defense. Okay, let's just fix it, and here's this. And then they write another check to go get more players. But I can't sit here and truthfully know. And I say this all the time. I say this so often. Like, it's better, generally speaking, in the talk radio world for me to get up here and go, are you kidding me? You lost to Vanderbilt? You can't run it for more than 1 yard a carry in the red zone? The offense is 90th in the country in scoring? Fire this staff, get a new one. This is a joke. That plays better on radio. It does. I don't necessarily believe that. And I certainly don't know who's willing to spend what money. And I don't even know where the money comes from. Like, Ross Dellinger wrote a piece, and they've got a tech guy in San Francisco who's spending a bunch of money. And, you know, you hear Gordon and you hear Todd Graves, and there's oil and gas in Southwest Louisiana, and, like, they've never run short of money. I'll tell you that. Need to buy Ogeron out? They bought him out. Need to hire Brian Kelly for $100 million? Hired him for $100 million. He hired a defensive staff. You need to buy them out after 2 years? Bought him out. Then you determined you had to go to the transfer portal and spend a bunch of money there. They spent a bunch of money there. Like, they've never run out of money. The only time they lost, straight up lost on money, was Bryce Underwood, and that is a completely different beast because that's one of the richest men literally in the world. So there's always been money. Maybe there is for a new coaching staff or a whole group of new players. But I don't know. The point of this is, and you might say, well, isn't it your job to find that out? To an extent, but like, people aren't super anxious to tell everyone about the X amount of $1 million they spent out of their personal checking account to go buy defensive ends and tight ends and left tackles. It's just not. How many boosters do you know you can immediately point to that are paying at any school? Like, I can do Larry Ellison at Michigan, but like, I just don't have a lot of that information for any team. So this is a long and contrived way to like get to the point of like, we'll see when we find out. We got to see what LSU does the rest of the way. We got to see what happens in December. And then I'll give you an assessment of how I feel like the football program is doing. Right now, you're on the brink of coming up woefully short with this roster. And if you want to boil the entire program down to this one roster this year, I'm not going to tell you that's wrong at all. This was supposed to be the best team, and they're not playing very well. But I'm not going to yell and scream and bang tables about stuff that I just don't know about. That's how I approach these segments. That's how I approach discussions in private. It's just the way that I'm wired. So I got the mic, and you get that side of the story. We'll see. My hope, they beat Texas A&M on Saturday. That's my hope. But we'll see. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.